Welcome back to King Kong Kids Storytime. We have The Sign of the Chrysanthemum by Catherine Patterson. Chapter 9, The Festival of Gion. He had promised to think about Takanobu's request. By the gods, if only for one moment he could think about anything else. He was like an animal caught between two opposing lines of bowmen, all of the arrows flying toward him. Of what could he be sure now? That he had once had a father, that at least. That his father had been a warrior? Probably. His guileless mother could hardly have invented the whole tale. That his father was a high-ranking Heike samurai? At this point his body grew hot and he wanted to twist away from the painful questioning. But he forced himself to face it. Was his father a high-ranking samurai? No, more likely his father had been the imaginative one, inventing that detail to impress the one at his side, so eager to be impressed. Perhaps, just perhaps, he was a ronin who sold his sword to ship captains in fear of pirates, a rogue who amused himself in port with country girls that listened wide-eyed to his charming lies. The chrysanthemum. Why hadn't he asked to see it? A vision flashed across Muna's mind, a vision of his mother, his little childlike mother with Takanobu. Muna passed his hand before his face as if to bat the scene away. But if not Takanobu, someone like Takanobu, that was a burr he could not brush off. Takanobu himself hung to Muna like a burr during the next weeks. Muna would scarcely have left the swordsmith's shop before the tall figure, clad as a monk, would fall into step beside him. "I can't wait, puppy. You must not put me off." The ronin spread a large hand on his chest. "Your own father." But Muna did put him off. To steal a sword from Fukuji was too unthinkable. Meanwhile, the rice seedlings of the rainy season were stretching green heads up above the paddies toward the sun. Beyond the fields, through the veil of midsummer haze, the mountains surrounding the capital were lush with green as well. The festival of Gion was at hand. At Fukuji's suggestion, Muna went to see the great Gion shrine, to see the parade, and the fortunate boy who had been chosen to be this year's sacred page. The festival of Gion was devoted to Susano, the storm god, that swift, impetuous deity who could never be counted on. Sometimes he was a great hero, slaying the dragons that plagued mankind. But as often as not, he was a naughty boy, playing pranks on his noble sister Amaterasu, goddess of the sun. The impetuous warriors and fickle courtiers of Hyanko found him an appropriate object for their devotion. Muna jostled his way to the front of the crowd for a better view of the gorgeous procession as it neared the shrine's torii, the gateway of two tall posts and two horizontal ones through which a shrine is approached. Riding on a white war horse was a boy of about his own age. But there the resemblance ended. This boy was perfect of feature, his complexion fair as one who has always been protected from the elements. He wore a red silk brocaded outer garment, the loops of the full sleeves betraying a gold inner lining. His full puffed trousers were of delicate blue silk, like the blue of an April sky. His long hair was bound up under a tall black court cap, and at his side hung a long sword in a jeweled sheath. The Shigo, the sacred page of the festival, held his boyish face in a mask of modesty. But as he passed under the Torai, Muna could see the pride in his straight back. And why should he not be proud? Of all the sons of the great families of the city, he alone had been chosen to dance the sacred dance of the Gion shrine, and for the 9 days of the festival to bear in his person the spirit of the gods. He is the Shigo, the sacred page of the gods, while I'm the nameless one, the nothing of man or god. Muna's eyes dropped to his square peasant feet. An elbow jabbed his ribs. Impressive, eh? Takanobu was standing beside him. Muna felt a scrape of annoyance. Now his holiday was stolen. I must have the sword by the end of the festival. The Ronin spoke through his clenched teeth, so that in the din of the crowd he would not be overheard. I cannot. The flutes of the passing musicians wailed mournfully. You must understand. Takanobu kept his eyes on the procession as he continued. It is not for me alone. The city is set for revolt. It may come at any time. A drunken samurai stumbled past with a woman on his arm. Any time. That is, after some of us sober up from the holidays. Revolt? Donk, donk, da-da, donk, donk, warned the passing drums. Hush, fool! The Ronin glanced about, then leaned closer to the boy. On the street of the ox dealers, the shop just north of the fox shrine, I will be waiting on the last night of the festival. He looked into Muna's troubled face with his eyes flashing. For the emperor, if not for me. And he shoved off into the throng of merrymakers. Donk, donk, da-da, donk, donk. The procession moved on under the torii into the shrine grounds. Muna watched gaily dressed musicians, the samurai on horseback, but in his mind he was rehearsing a scene with Fukuji. It is an impossible entreaty I make, but no. For the sake of the emperor and the city, could you... Again, no. He had no illusions that Takanobu acted out of love for the emperor. But why? Why, he wondered, was he so concerned for Fukuji? The swordsmith had promised him nothing. Surely Muna had repaid his debt of honor by now in doing thousands of menial tasks during these past 6 months. Must he have nothing more to look forward to in life than woman's work? Whereas, if he went to Takanobu with a sword, donk, donk, da-da, donk, donk, his heart skipped a beat with the drumbeat. Other men had made their names in battle. Yet, if there was any hope that Fukuji would make him an apprentice... But suppose Takanobu were in truth his father. His mind reeled under the clash of opposing arguments. The crowd was pressing into the shrine grounds now, but the boy began to push through in the opposite direction. He would soon be 15 and accounted a man. Somewhere in this narrow land, there must be a place for him. Or must he make his own place? That was it. The luckless must snatch their own luck. He elbowed and ducked a passage through the surging crowd. That was it. He was nearly a man, and a man must make his own place to stand, must seize his own fortune. The swordsmith was seated at the grindstone. So he had completed the final tempering of Muratani's sword. Is that why he wanted me out of the way? Did he fear I'd snatch his precious secrets through a closed door? Thought Muna. How was it? The grizzled head stayed bent over the wheel as Fukuji spoke. He kept the blade delicately balanced as he pumped rhythmically to keep the grindstone in motion. As always, replied the boy coolly, so intent on his peak that he forgot that he had never seen the festival before. The swordsmith did not remind him. Muna toed a cobblestone with the tip of his sandal. Are you nearly through with Muratani's sword? Just the grinding and polishing. By the end of the festival, Muna sucked in his breath. Was it a sign from the gods? He kicked an imaginary stone. What is it, Muna? That is, at the new year I shall be 15. So, Fukuji continued the grinding. The blade caught sunlight and flashed in Muna's eyes. I shall be a man. Yes? Well? Curse his coolness. I must know what you are thinking of me, Fukuji. The swordsmith lifted the blade and seemed to study its surface. What I think of you? Yes, the boy stumbled on. Will you make me your apprentice? The silence rose and grew like the approach of a tidal wave. Muna wanted to turn and flee before it overwhelmed him, but he willed his feet to stand against the fearful flood. At last the silence broke, crashing in upon his stiff body. My child, said Fukuji, the proper question must be, what do you think of yourself? My child. Muna thought he would be overwhelmed, suffocated. But the man continued his quiet assault. If you are not content with yourself, what does it matter what I think? The sharp eyes went back to the blade. The sure, strong foot began the rhythmic pedaling once more. Was this to be his answer? By the gods, he deserved better than this. The protests stammered inside his head. Look at me! Fukuji, save me! But the conversation was over. Without a word, without a by your leave, the boy left. Akiko, she would help him. She did not think him a stupid child. She would listen to him. He began to run, his hair streaming behind him like a war banner. Donk, donk, da-da donk, 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 da-da donk, donk. They had nothing but contempt for him. Takanobu, Fukuji, they used him. Puppy, child, he was nothing to them. Donk, donk, da-da donk, donk. Akiko would not despise him. He had to see her. He had to know he was someone. Angry tears started in his eyes. From the sandal shop doorway came noises of laughter and the raucous tone of conversation that signals celebration. With Kawaki so near death? How dare they? Akiko! He almost bellowed her name at the door. Ah, the swordsmith's boy. The uncle greeted him with an elaborate bow, a cup of rice wine in his pudgy hand. Akiko? It was almost a whisper this time. Ah, yes. Well, I'm afraid, my boy, that our sorrowful news has yet to reach your ears. The effusive politeness was menacing. Our beloved Kawaki, husband to my late sister, some 8 days before the opening of the festival. Akiko, where is Akiko? Great fear had seized the boy, and his whole body began to shake. We have been most fortunate. The uncle coughed importantly. She is quite well situated. Where? Cried Muna, strangling on the word. Yes, a lovely house it is, one of the largest on Rokoju Avenue, just a step off Suzaku Oji. He swished the warm wine around in his cup, completely oblivious to the agonies through which Muna was passing. She has always been a pretty little thing, you know, really wasted in a sandal shop. I must leave, thought Muna, before I kill him. Somewhere in the distance, a single flute wailed its sorrow to the unfeeling sky.